What do you see what happens when, we just stop designing these CTE student programs for the students, but we start to do it with them?
We're just going to be like, oh, we'll just create this entry level work knowing, oh, in 10 years, it's going to cost us even more to upskill them. Why wouldn't we just do that now? I don't understand that.
I spoke to 40 people all across the nation. This wasn't a state of Iowa book. It wasn't a Midwest book. We all had the same idea, the same vision of we need to take this to a different level. We need to shake things up. We need to disrupt.
We bouncing students around and reimagining what those program pathways are so that students are actually prepared. Or are we just so focused on those compliance check marks and creating students with deep technical skills and looking the other way after they graduate? That's the reason for the saltiness. And I did have to ask Jeff, am I a little too salty?
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hostrawser here with Alli Dahl. Alli, what's going on? How are you?
I'm great. It is December
Yes.
when this podcast is coming out. And we just came off of this awesome youth science series, and we were really trying to figure out how do we end the year. And there's only 3 weeks left, exactly 3 when this comes out, people. So, you've been on notice. And we, this year we did a lot with CTE, a lot of conversations around CTE and what it looks like, what it could look like, what it should look like maybe. And in the middle of, it was kind of a curveball, I'm not going to lie, really out of the blue, our dear friend Kristy Volesky texts us and is like, I'm writing a book and it's coming out this year. And it's called CTE Reimagined. And she wrote it with Jeff Frost. And we were like, you know what? There is no better way that we wanted to end 2025 than to talk about this book. And so here we are.
Here we are. I think it's a great, I don't know how else to intro. Well, we have Kristy and Jeff here. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you. I feel like I need a coat that says third time.
That's an SNL thing, isn't it?
Is it like the 5-timers club and you're the 3-timers?
Yes, we should do that.
A little roll.
Well, again, welcome. And basically, for those who don't know you, Kristy, yet, and we are bringing Jeff on for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Jeff Frost, and thanks for having us on the show. And thanks really for supporting us throughout this process the last year. 36 years in education. I just retired in quotes, in June from my position in the Waterloo schools in Waterloo, Iowa, a district of about 10,000 students, where I was the executive director of professional and technical education. So kind of the all-encompassing words tied to career and technical education. Now I'm kind of in the world of consulting and other things, but just really trying to reshape the I would say the image around career and technical education, and like the book says, kind of reimagining what it could or should be in the future here.
Awesome. And Kristy, I know you're a 3-timer, but this might be the first time for some of our audience.
Yeah. Practitioner turned state level consultant turned independent nationwide supporter of career tech ed, work-based learning, educational disruptor, visionary, but not quite the education disruptors that you and Alli are. But always working to advocate for students and really how we take what we have and make it better.
I think, just jumping in here, I hope this works. Yes, I have a lot of, yes, here's the book. I think, ooh, look, mine's got 3D stuff on it if you're watching it for some reason. CTE Reimagined is the book that you both put a lot of time, a lot of effort. And we were thankful enough that Alli and I were able to write the foreword of this amazing piece. It's reimagined, but what What was it? What inspired you to say, you know what, here's the time. It's time to do this. Kristy, you've written before. Jeff, have you written books before as well?
Oh, I'm not sure I would have done it again if I had done it before. So I'll tell you what, I give Kristy a lot of credit because after having gone through the process, I'm like, you're crazy, girl, because it's a process. But honestly, all joking aside, yeah, there's a lot to it, but it really was inspiring. And it's kind of strange. Like when we first started talking about this, like I think like last November already, maybe even before that,
Mhm.
how it evolved and morphed and changed and like as we kept going on and really from the original vision, I guess I'd say, to the final product, it's quite a bit different, honestly. And
Mhm.
I would also say it's quite a bit better, and it's better because we really did add on the next piece of it, of really what CTE could and should be. It kind of started out more as a roadmap type book of how you do things, but then the roadmap that is out there now is kind of really the dialogue that is okay, but could be a lot better. And I think as we got going into this, we were like, you know what, we need to change the dialogue, and let's I think the word we used quite a bit was salty. Let's take this to a different level and really try to make people think outside the box.
Mhm. Are you
Agree.
salty, Kristy? I know
I'm
you
a
were
little bit.
a little bit.
I'm just leaning into that a lot bit, right?
Mhm.
I would say that yes, when Jeff first reached out, he's like, "Hey, you've done a book before. What do you think about this?" I'm like, I've thought about doing a CTE book, and we had kind of ventured down one path, and then I just said, you know what if we like include examples, like, and we just kind of really push the field but keep it simple, like, here's what we should be doing, here's how you should do it, here's some simple next steps to kind of move it forward. I kind of somewhat of an iteration of my first book, but really like a much bigger vision, and then connecting into systems. And then I'd asked Jeff, I'm like, what if we showcase programs across the nation? He's like, that sounds awesome, but how do we get started? I'm like, I know some people. I think I know some people we could get started with. And but Jeff really took a hold on that as far as doing all those connections, because that was a process. But I think it morphed this last fall, and you guys were part of that email chain of why do we just keep reiterating the same thing? Like a lot of the CTE books out there are like, this is how you do it. And that's honestly how we started out. But we're like, no, like we have to stop just saying this one small tweak and we're good. Let's check that
Mm.
box. And then we can say, look at what we've done. Or we've put up this brand new, beautiful building. Yeah, we're good. No, no, when you start digging in, there are so many things system wide that need to be corrected, and even instructional practices that need to be done. So, how do we take on such a giant piece? And that was really the evolution of as you move through the book from simple, internal to systematic change, digging into these other elements and programs that are available to really reimagine how we're doing things.
I mean, I loved reading all the examples. I was like, Peter, those are our guests for the next 2 years. I
We're doing the
texted him that.
podcast series of the book.
I was like, thank you, Kristy and Jeff, for just showing us. I mean, we know a lot of the people in this book, but there's a lot of people we didn't know. So that was
Mhm.
awesome. You highlight like 40 examples. Your comment there, Kristy, I'm going to pull something from your introduction here. It kind of highlights. So this book just goes at it right from the beginning, people. Like the first sentence to like the last one is great. Yeah, there's some punches thrown. I love it. You're not disrupting education if you're just kind of like, um, maybe we should do this. No, you guys do make some claims, and you really do show a blueprint. But you say this in the introduction. You say, too often we mistake surface solutions for real change. We open a new career center, launch a new academy, and add another degree program. These may showcase innovation, but they do not reach the root of the problem, right? And so I know, Kristy, I have lots of conversations with you about this, and Jeff, if you're connected with this book, you obviously have lots of conversations with Kristy about this. But like, Kristy, you're a big advocate for like, we can't just be compliance, like minded with
Mm-hmm.
CTE. And so like you've been in this space, you've both been in this space for a long time. I can't say, and probably many of our listeners can't say that they have for the amount of time that you have. And so it's like, why is that such a barrier, you know, to reimagining CTE when you're approaching districts or people doing this type of work, that it becomes like, well, we're just built this new thing, so we're good.
Too often we're doing that. And I would even say, like, when we really take a look at our programs, are they really innovative or is just a little tiny bit innovative? For example, a couple weeks ago, I had this great partner, like the person in the state related to the trades, nationally connected. I've even presented with him nationally before. And we had met with a school district, extending a partnership, creating more connections for other businesses in the area, talking about doing more work-based learning experiences along the continuum, even trying to troubleshoot how do we get around a student-built home if we cannot provide an instructor, nor do we have the capacity or funding to do so. And it was all great. It was a lovely conversation. We walked away with some real tangibles, and you could say, check, 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 right? We're expanding our internship program. We're doing a student home built program. That's another work-based learning piece for compliance checks. And we're going to do more with career planning by introducing more classroom speakers and adding on some more tours. But on the way out, and because I know this person for years, we've built and established a relationship. I just said, I think what you offered was amazing. Like, that's so nice. But honestly, what do we need in 10 years? What do the trades need in 10 years? And he's just like, well, we're always going to be short staffed. We're always going to be short workers. We just have a declining population. We will never fill all of them. Okay. That's a done deal. But he said our real problem is succession planning. We have people who are ready to retire and want to sell their businesses, but no one to sell them to. We have done such a great job of producing workers. We've done a great job of creating people who are great electricians, great plumbers, great welders, but they do not see themselves as business owners. They do not understand finance. And we're trying desperately to create these different workshops to create this confidence and understanding of how to do it. And we're not getting interest. So he goes, 10 years? I don't know how many businesses we have because they will close if they can't find someone to sell to, because eventually people will retire or close down their business. And so then what does that mean for different communities across the state? Do you now just have one option? Do you have to travel even further or wait even longer? Like, what does that actually mean? So here's me saying, like, well, then what are we doing? What is our program doing? We have traditionally with CTE said, these are the jobs that are open. This is what we need to do to fill these jobs. These are the skills. Here you go. Here's someone this year. Here's someone next year. Here's someone next year, and so on. We haven't thought through, what do these students need 10 years from now? Are they stuck in these careers because we've failed to provide them with leadership skills? We've talked about the durable, transferable skills, but are we actually talking about what that means? Instead of creating a program pathway that is a series of technical skill attainment, credential, whatever that may be, so then they can go entry level, why aren't we trying to create future leaders? Because I don't think that comment from that individual is unique to the trades. I don't think it's unique to Iowa. I think it is universally something that is bubbling on the surface that we're ignoring because we can, even though people have been screaming for years, we need leaders. We know we need leaders. There's even national research that shows in 10 years, like that's where the jobs are with the growth in AI. So when I hear programs say, you know what, we're going to have 10 interns this year and we're good. Check the box for the state. And I just think like, but what about the rest of your students? Are they just playing pretend in your classes because we've failed to connect them with real opportunities? We've failed to generate programs that produce leaders.
Hard stop there. I saw it. That's the saltiness. So, Jeff, with your background, I mean, you got 30 some years. I'm just going to say 30 some years because we're close to the same age. Your perspective on this, like what Kristy just said, like how do you relate to that? How do you look at that and say, you know what, this is what we've been doing and maybe checking the box, maybe not. What what does that look like on your approach to this whole reimagining of CTE?
Absolutely. And a lot of what our vision is like we are so compliant driven, whether that's compliance for the state or expectations of business partners or the work needing workers and things like that. So when we look at that, we were like, you know what? The technology is changing so quickly. If we only are all about just creating a workforce pipeline, we're doing our students a huge disservice because honestly, if they get into a program and 5 years from now that career is obsolete because of AI or whatever, what a disservice we've done. Or it's entry level, like Kristy just mentioned, an entry level position when they could be doing better. We know CTE is much more than just being a workforce development component. It is about economic development. It is about a leadership skills and abilities. It's durable skills or soft skills or professional skills, whatever you want to call them. And here's the thing about it. So like my lens is, and I think a great point Kristy had, it's the nice shiny building. The district I was in spent $40 million on a renovation and then an addition, brand new building with all the nice, windows and the building is clean and the new equipment and stuff like that. You know what? If I'm saying you can do CTE in your building, in your community, you don't need to be building brand new buildings to do this. To do it right, you can do it if you do it right, you can do it right in your own building right now without the bells and whistles and all that stuff. And honestly, that was kind of the vision we want to set forth. It's like, you can do it. It's just a mindset you need to change and not get stuck in we're very tradition driven. Obviously education in general, if you think about it, we go back to the agrarian model of the 1870s and we're still really kind of doing the same thing in all classrooms today. You take the chalkboard, turn it into a Promethean board or something like that. We got to get out of that mode. We need to really take it to the next level there. And really it starts with like not being compliance driven. That's a big one for me. It's like, if you're just checking boxes to meet the state standards or whatever else, we're going to be going down the same path that we've been going down the last 50, 60, 70 years. And we're not going to be putting our students where they need to be for the future. And really economically, it's going to be not good for the country either there. So, we kind of set out with that mindset, like, let's shake things up. And again, I've seen it, I know Kristy, I've known Kristy from the state level and from consulting, but writing this book, I've seen the salty side of Kristy, and we kept pushing each other, trying to raise that bar. It's like, hey, is this salty enough? Is this outside the box enough? And we kept doing that. And as we kept pushing each other, really we landed where we needed to land. It wasn't actually, we can say it's salty, whatever, but it's the right spot to be at. It's not really being salty at all if you're landing in where you need to be at. And here's the thing about it too, is like I come in with a secondary mindset because that was where I'm at, but we're talking truly pre-K 16 model. It's not just the secondaries, it's not just the high schools. Yep. You need exploration, you need your community colleges involved, you need your technical schools, you need your 4 years. This is a comprehensive approach of reimagining career and technical education, beginning with the earliest stages of exploration all the way through that 16th year, if that's the route you decide to take. So in a roundabout way, that's
I'm just saying bland food doesn't taste good. You need some salt.
So
okay.
I was going to go a different route here, Alli. I was going to say like, okay, can you please stop? Okay, stop. Okay, we need to stop this, right? And that's the level I feel like you guys. Sorry, I like the bland food though. Now I'm hungry. You always make me hungry. Sorry.
I'm just saying, like CTE can be sweet if you have the salt, like that. Like everybody loves salty sweet, but and that's where I think the book gets it right. And like Peter and I, we don't have a lot of books on the podcast. We get pitched a lot of books for the podcast, but we don't have a lot of books on the podcast because it's like, what is it really disrupting? Is it just, like a book that's selling you something you don't need? Or is this like really something that is going to change education? We wholeheartedly thought that even before you kind of were like, hey, and write the foreword for us. That was
That's the great thing about it too. And so if Kristy and I had just written this book us two together, and that was the content of the book. Obviously, we're not content experts in each of the 40 niche areas that we really take deep dives into and disrupt the way things need to be done within that. The great thing about it, and here's where Kristy's vast area of networking comes into play really well here. And one of the great things for me is like one of the pieces of the book that I got to do is I got to talk to each of the 40 people about this. And those ended up being, you know, I thought they'd be like 15, 20-minute conversations. Heck, I'm on a Friday night, like 7:30 at night on the phone, still talking to someone because I'm so excited about what they're saying. We found 40 disruptors. We found 40 people that were reimagining what those areas need to look like to move forward. And that's what I like. It isn't just Kristy and I's vision. Every one of those people that we talk to and have contributed to this book are the next level thinkers, outside the box, the disruptors, you know, the Steve Jobs mentality of like, you know, think outside the box, creating what CTE could be, reimagining it. So I'm just excited that the people that brought the content expertise to those areas were lock, stock, and key in line with what we were thinking too.
You brought up, I would say, something that anybody like closely listening to the podcast, and I will say we have lots of listeners who, man, they catch every sentence, because I get more and more comments, messages like, can you connect me with so and so? Like we have some like very astute listeners that are listening. And you said something that I'm sure they're gonna ask about, is this idea of workforce development versus economic development. And like, you know, it's education and industry, it's a bridge that's often broken. Like, you know, I'm curious on your viewpoint on that, and kind of like what's standing in the way from CTE shifting to that other side.
Okay, so when we think about CTE, traditionally, our advisory councils, we're looking at workforce data, you know, what are the jobs that we need and so on. This idea of workforce development versus economic development. Workforce development is how CTE has lived. We have shown our value in career and tech ed because we're producing workers. We're producing to fill these jobs that are vacant, the needed items. So we are taking a look at what is current and we're filling it. And we're essentially creating this pipeline. When I hear pipeline, I think of students on a conveyor belt coming out of CTE, dropping off right into workforce's lap at their offices. But like that is just a Band-Aid. Like that is literally just what we need right now. And we're building our future of our programs based off of the here and now. But the way that technology is moving, the way that everything is shifting in our economy, we cannot just prepare for right now, because then we're not preparing students to make any sort of pivot 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 20 years from now. We have limited what their future is, versus the mindset with economic development. And this was the cool agency. Like everyone to be a part of it. Every time I was a part of their futuristic thinking, they're thinking about how are we creating communities where people want to live, work, and stay? How are we thinking about businesses that we need to reach out to bring into, to expand our economy? How are we thinking about what a business or a group of businesses can do today for the future? How are we ensuring we have leaders, and where are our leadership programs at? How do we sustain those? How do we access funding for our different communities and businesses to be able to develop the infrastructure for the future? So when I think about CTE, we've been living in workforce. We've been living in the here and now. We are just producing what is needed now, and we are not preparing students to be leaders. We are not preparing students to have the opportunity to pivot easily when things shift, because they will. The way that our technology is advancing, the way that people are moving around, and the way that new businesses emerge, we have to prepare students for more. If we think about that mindset of what do students need 10, 20 years from now to have a non-linear career, and we would build our programs from that, it would be totally different. We wouldn't be thinking about, when we hear back, you know what, we need students who have some sort of computer science background. Okay, then how do we add a computer science background into our program? No, you have a computer science program. Build it out so you encourage students to go from your program to take a course or course over there to utilize the limited staffing and funding we already have. And if they need a leadership class, where's the leadership class? Are we bouncing students around and reimagining what those program pathways are so that students are actually prepared? Or are we just so focused on those compliance check marks and creating students with deep technical skills and looking the other way after they graduate? I would argue that that's not our goal in education and that's not what people want, but that's the way our programs are set up. That's the reason for the saltiness. And I did have to ask Jeff, am I a little too salty? Do I need to tone it down? And he fed the monster, is all I'm going to say on record.
I did.
He kept telling me,
it.
Kristy, no, you need to go further. And it wasn't meant to be, so when you read this, it's not supposed to mean this sassy thing, but it's literally like somebody has to come out and say it. I could dance around with the kid gloves, but we are 20 years past the kid gloves. We need to just rip off the Band-Aid, acknowledge the problem, and move on. And again, if you know me, people who are listening, how I write isn't just like, here's all the problems, let me complain like I'm sitting in the teacher's lounge and complaining about things. It's here's what's wrong, here's how we fix it, and here's the steps to do it. And it's not out of reach, and it doesn't cost millions of dollars. It is taking a look internally of what you are doing, identifying what's going well, identify where the gaps are, and move on from there. But it doesn't stop with just adding on a single course or changing a program or adding a piece of equipment. It is way more than that.
One course can fix it, right, Jeff? Come on. Just see how I'm throwing Kristy over there.
Yeah, like I would put a flame over her right now because she's on fire. And I love when we'd have our Zoom meetings every week and we'd be talking and like I could just see, let's go, let's do it. Start writing right now because you're on fire. But, one term we use quite a bit where I was at was on and off ramps for students. The expectation that a student, and stackable credentials, but on and off ramps, because the expectation or for us to expect or assume that a student at 16, 17, and 18 years old are going to lock on a linear pathway and that's going to be their career pathway is absolutely crazy. Think of all the 20-something, 30-something, 40-somethings that are changing careers all throughout their lifetime. Exactly. I mean, if we are only setting kids up for a linear pathway without on and off ramps and the ability to pivot in those pathways, shame on us. We need to give them a holistic view of what's out there, give them the skills to have that ability to pivot, and honestly, like be able to down the road in this world, ever-changing world of work, be able to find a job or a career. And that's the thing too, is I don't want a job. I want a career. I want something that I like to do. I don't want to punch the clock and walk in and out. Now, there are people that want those type of careers. Mm-hmm. Great. But what we need to do is, again, we can't have students, the expectation from business partners or the worker community, the business partners, that we're going to just give them workers handoffs, because they really do, everybody changes their minds. And to have a 16, 17, 18-year-old not expect that they're not going to change their mind, kind of crazy.
Well, that, and for at least 5 years right now, the conversation that has been at the non-credit community college side is the need to upskill workers. Why would we continue to feed that problem? If we're just going to be like, oh, we'll just create this entry-level work knowing, oh, in 10 years, it's going to cost us even more to upskill them. Why wouldn't we just do that now? I don't understand that.
What is the biggest thing that's standing in the way that you've seen consistently through a lot of these challenges? Is it money? Is it people want schools to do everything? I know it's not money, Jeff, because you already touched on that. But like, what is the biggest number one thing that you guys have found maybe throughout the book that is, hey, this is what people think is standing in the way, but it's not?
Money. That there's someone who's going to magically come in and just change it all for them. It does require hard work, but it also requires time. I mean, nothing in here is so outlandishly out there that it's going to cost like a tremendous amount of money. It could be done internally with just a think tank time and professional development, but it's getting your leaders to have a vision and to really think through, like, what does this mean and how do I get people on board and how do we talk about what the actual problem is? Because until we acknowledge the problem and where we want to go, it is just a series of check boxes. What do we have to do this year? What do we have to do this year? And then we're like, oh, wait, our enrollment's declining. Oh, we have to cut programs. Oh, where did this happen? It happened because of you. You're not doing anything to make people want to come to your school or college. You're not doing anything to retain talent. You're not looking at anything that's beyond the norm because this is easy. And it's easier just to put your head in the sand than it is to push through. Now, I'm not saying that people don't push through, and we highlighted 40 leaders, and there's more out there. But how much of that is just isolated? Well, there's this one little pocket in this institution that's doing something extraordinary while everybody else is status quo, hoping that they will make up for it. Can't live like that. Can't live like that. So I would say, for the most part, people say it's time, but I think it's a lack of vision and a lack, or not time. They say it's money, but it's a lack of like vision and in well invested time to take a hard look at what is it that needs to be addressed and how do we move forward. And maybe we haven't done this thing before, which there's some stuff in the book that I know is not typical for education to think about. But if we would, we could replace a course, not add on a course and add on an instructor, unless you have the money and funding to do so. It's just, what do we have? Bring it down to the shell, rebuild it with what we have access to in just a better manner.
I can read her mind now. Like, we've worked together so much. Like, before she even started speaking, I was like, everything she was saying was like, yep. I am going to throw one more out there. I think that's a big obstacle or barrier, and that's just tradition. We've always done it this way, and it's the path of least resistance, or it's the easiest way, or it's the way we've always done it. And I get so sick and tired of hearing that. Like, hey, we've always done it this way. Well, you get what you get when you've always done it that way. If you don't break out of that mindset and really start thinking outside the box, like, we're going to hit a cliff here pretty soon where, like, the workforce and people aren't prepared for this great pivot that's coming up, that it's going to happen in the workforce. And tradition is so much a barrier. And honestly, I'm going to say this: it's tradition at school level, community level, school level. It's traditions of what business partners and workforce people think. It's what the state thinks traditionally. We've always done it this way. It's compliance. It's this. It's that. And honestly, this shift that's taking place, at least I know in our state and several other states, and obviously at the federal level, of kind of moving from Department of Ed to workforce development, is a scary thing in itself for me. Again, that's kind of just reinforcing traditionally, this is the way we've always done it. Let's start aligning CTE with workforce. Let's take education, align it with workforce. And, that's a scary thing. We got to kind of break that cycle too, both nationally and at various state levels. And I'm not sure how many states are doing kind of what we're doing in our state, or I know there's quite a few that are, but we just got to break
It's everywhere, Jeff. It's everywhere. And it's ego, fear.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we,
I don't want to say it. Ego is a barrier.
One of the things about that ego and fear is once you start pulling back that curtain, and Brett Thompson, my colleague, and I always say it, you've got to have guts to do that, because it's going to show. It's going to show lacks of things you need to work on, and it's also going to show the great, right? Of course, we're going to put the great out in all the newsletters and such, but if we've got to be humble enough to understand that, okay, here is something that we're missing, and we need to work together as a community to make this happen and to change this. And that is, I mean, think about it. You're a superintendent, you're a principal, you're an elected official, and they pull back that curtain, and it's not those nice numbers that are on your school report card in this area. That's where, but isn't that what learning is? That's the crazy part of it. All right, I'm going to let Alli, you got a question. I don't want to rile Kristy up too much, but I do like the dynamic here between her and Jeff. It's awesome.
It's really good. I think, with what you're saying, money, tradition, fear, ego, like those in education, the vast majority of them, I was definitely one of them. Like they're people who like the system it worked for, it was nice, it was clean, it checked the boxes for them mentally, like and it's got to be a little bit messy in order to do this work. It's got to be messy and a chaotic, I would think, just changing, the way we think about school and CTE. And the more I learn about what CT can do and what you do talk in the book, which is very real for those of us who have not been in it for a long time, is that like it it is on the national stage and it can't sit in the box that it has sat in if it's really going to be reimagined, right? Like it's got to, and we have conversations about this. They're really, I think the types of conversations that are happening on LinkedIn and online and in articles are really ramping up with this kind of discussion too, of like, what does CT like historically done, and like how do we brand it, or how do we change it, how do we reimagine it? So what, you can pick out something from the book, or you can share what comes to mind, but like what would you guys say, like how do we change that narrative?
Oh my gosh, that is a big question. I had to really restrain myself on the comments on LinkedIn because Jason Van Ness, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have just opened a can of worms. He wrote this
Jason's good
great
at that.
article.
Great
He
article.
did. Great article on career and tech ed and potentially renaming it, how it's shifted from vocational ed to career and tech ed and CTE, which I know I was like, let's stop using the acronym that's used for head injuries in NFL because that's confusing. But I'm like, beyond that, how are we talking about career and tech ed? And I'm going to go back to the conversation that we're having. We talk about career and tech ed like it's workforce development. We're producing these entry level workers for these entry level jobs. We advertise those entry level careers and jobs. Why aren't we talking about the more innovative careers or where the field is headed? And why aren't we talking about the intricate set of skills that we need? And my gosh, like if I come back and say, well, my marketing agency said, don't send me another student who cannot write because they cannot help me in an internship. And then I go talk to the language arts teacher and they're like, oh my gosh, I wish you could say that to my class. I'm like, why isn't this the class? Like, why isn't this a combo class? Like, that I think is always going to be in our way if we don't start talking about what it actually is. And if we keep internalizing all the great things and where it's headed, it will never go anywhere. But it also has to be different. And I say this in the nicest way. We do a great job of hands-on pieces in CTE, but most of it is pretend play. We're going to pretend to create a product. We're going to pretend to market. And we're going to do a pretend presentation. Why is it all contained? Why aren't we connecting with local businesses? Why aren't we even pitching different ideas and product lines? Like small business owners have a lot on their plates. They would love a fresh set of eyes, and what better way to say like this is how you actually use the concepts that we're talking about in this class. So I know I've gone a little bit off script there, Alli, but I think it's just we have to be, if we really want CTE to be more than what it is, then we have to start by how we talk about it, how we share about it, but more importantly, we have to be able to back up that talk. If we say that CTE is really how we build future leaders, engineers, doctors, CPAs. I mean, we could say this for all of them, but when are we talking about that? Or do we only talk about CTE to fulfill the mindset, which it's just the trades? And I don't say it like just the trades because the trades are very important, but are we talking about how they're creating eco-friendly type of new construction piece? Like there is so much technology even in those fields, but we're still just talking about the traditional careers and the traditional mindset. So unless we talk about it differently and actually have something to back it up, CTE will always remain in this tiny little box, the the stepchild apparently of education. I don't know. Like this is what Jeff and I have talked about is like, how do we make it more? Well, we have to start with what we have and we have to reinvent it. we have to talk about it differently and we have to share about it.
In going back to even like when I talk about like traditions hard to break, and Kristy kind of alluded to like, hey, do we keep calling it CTE? I can't believe like I had people like CTE, like, or when did you become a doctor writing about brain injuries? And I'm like, no, that's not that. But I mean, we're so stuck, even the workforce component of this. Think about it. A big piece of CTE workforce is registered apprenticeships and quality pre-apprenticeships. Now, what is that in honesty? That's a middle-aged gilded system going back to the 1500s, which might work in certain fields, but like so many people got the mindset that you have to have every program has to have a registered apprenticeship. Why can't it just be an internship? Why can't it be job shadowing? Like all these things, we get so stuck in the past that we can't move forward. And part of that, is we have to, again, disrupt. We have to change mindsets. And that really starts at the top at state levels, really national levels, but state levels and working the way down. Again, superintendents get graded on their school report cards. And I get that. But there's got to, I mean, if we don't break out of the norm, the box, we're going to keep getting what we get.
It's very interesting because in our program, I mean, just to your point, and we're building a MET pathway, which is manufacturing, engineering, trades, and technical pathway. I don't know. There's acronyms all over the place, people. And I love the CTE thing because I was just talking to my dad, who was a football player. He's like, "What are you doing?" And all right, never mind. But what that student did was he actually helped a robotic line in a ginormous manufacturing facility. He was part of the team that got that robotic line up and running. Okay. He wasn't sweeping the floor. He wasn't like, so, and when we tell people that, they're like, really? And we just have to keep shouting it and letting people know. And today, even at the time we were recording this podcast, we had a conversation with somebody in health science area where we leaned on health professionals to use the correct terms because when we had kind of our little, brochure thing or whatever that we had some of our students help create, by the way, because they can do that. The person who was in healthcare said, "This sounds very educational. It doesn't sound real." And I'm like, bingo. That's what's making Kristy mad. But that's what we did. And all of a sudden we used that. And today, as we were talking to one of our potential partners, she's like, "I want 2 interns right now. Let's go." And I really, really like that. So, and also with the students, right? When you start, like we talked with our students, we speak with our students that we know, like we have these pathways. And in Illinois, I know some of this is in the book, but in Illinois, we have these pathway endorsements. And so there's healthcare, there's IT, there's marketing and all business and such. We even talked to students already that are pivoting, right? And we're talking with them. We just had one of our presentations at one of our 2 high schools, and a student was like, "Yeah, I'm in IT, but I really kind of want to do the communications thing." I'm like, "Good, let's start in IT, and we'll build around that, right? We will build it for you." So that's why I wanted to kind of ask you all, like throughout the book or in your experiences, like, what do you see? What happens when we just stop designing the CTE student programs for the students, but we start to do it with them. And I think this is this on-ramp, off-ramp conversation that I'm kind of setting up here. But what does that look like?
Messy.
I love the fact that Kristy sighs before he's crushed. That's the passion coming through, Alli. I love it.
I'm gonna. Okay, Jeff already knows because I did rant to him this week. I will tone down my rant here.
No. Keep it up. This is the Disrupt Education podcast. This isn't that other one.
So in all the conversations about career pathways and what does this look like, I was really excited when Advanced CTE had come out with something that was interconnected and They were talking about the different career clusters and how they would intersect and how we could be thinking differently. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like we had an ag leader talking about, agriculture is no longer just the family farm. It's IT, it's entrepreneurship, it's understanding finance. And we should really be doing this like zigzag between like three different programs. And oh, by the way, now it's dabbling into manufacturing, and we should be looking at manufacturing and how does that work with drones. So 4 programs, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And then since then, like Advanced CTE put it out and they've made some iterations. And I was very disheartened is a tame word, that they have removed the entrepreneurship, IT that used to hit all of them, because isn't everything business? Isn't everything entrepreneurship? So I was honestly really excited. Like, couldn't we just build out these pathways that not only are responsive to what students need, but thinking through what our community needs? Just because our community doesn't have this particular business or this particular career doesn't mean that they don't need it. And how do you ever introduce it if you're only looking at the here and now? That's that whole, like, again, workforce development versus economic development. So why aren't we thinking through what they're saying? An ideal student would have the most opportunities when they graduate and as they move through life if they take this and this and this related to this passion or this interest. And then it gives options if you ever want to switch career paths or generate new ones. That's what the system should look like, and it would be messy. And I'm going to guess that my former DE self would be like, and how do you capture that? And what I say is, who cares? Like, shouldn't it be you're building a career pathway that makes sense and is responsive to what we need and what we will need in the future? And couldn't that require some sort of zigzag as long as you've mapped out and have the reasoning behind the why it is you're doing that and you're recommending it? It can happen, but it's going to take people to say, let's rethink this. Let's reimagine like how we're going to actually capture this data because this is responsive to what students need. Now, going back to prior conversations that we've had as a middle child, Peter, you understand, I look for the gray. And schools and colleges don't have to wait for permission. You can create it. Just know what needs to happen for reporting to comply with that while pushing the system to be more responsive to what we need. Otherwise, again, going back to this entire conversation, we're going to be in a whole lot of mess in 10 years because we're going to have to upskill, reskill everybody because we've done nothing in the interim when we could have done something.
I think the opportunities abound for those programs and places where they're flexible and limber and agile and just they're willing to just shift. You're going to have the most opportunities in 2026 and 20 and beyond.
Right.
I mean, dead on with your point there, Kristy, because honestly, like as I talked to these 40 leaders around the nation, they all kind of talked about like the hub. There should be like a hub in the middle. And that should be the branches out of all the 16 career clusters. And like it should start with some business, some entrepreneurship, some communications, some IT skills, start there and then branch out to this. One of the great things, so I oversaw this place in Waterloo, Iowa called the Waterloo Career Center, had about 1,000 students each semester. We had 20 distinct pathway programs. The one thing I discovered over the 8 years I was overseeing that is we had about 1/3 of our students that would come into that program and lock onto a pathway and actually follow that out. They actually locked in and said, I think this is what I want to do. Great. We had about 1/3 that would get into a program and say, no, this isn't what I want to do at all. And then they would go talk about on and off ramps. Then they would go to another program. And then maybe they'd say, no, that's not quite it. They might try 2 or 3 programs before they would get to the one that they kind of thought was the right one. We call that a win every time. Yeah, maybe it's your junior year's first and second semester, and by your third or your first semester senior year, you kind of locked on to what you want. That's a win. That's a discovery of kind of the area you want to be in. One of the unique ones that we didn't really expect, but what we discovered, and this kind of goes back to that agility or agile approach, we had a lot of students that came in and knew what they wanted to do kind of in an area, but then they would bounce between programs, cherry picking classes that would be beneficial for their long-term vision of what they wanted to do. They might take some business, they might take some IT, they might take some this and that. And in the end, they were, I would say, better or more well-rounded or prepared for kind of what their vision was and where they were going to go than a lot of students. I mean, if you've never experienced that before, I almost think every student should have an IEP, like not special education students get IEPs. I think every student should have an IEP because every student's individual and what their outcome is going to be is different. I mean, we do have a 4-year plan in 8th grade, and they kind of re-examine that every year, but that's not really a deep dive in giving them, their own IEP. So for non-education, individualized education plan.
What, excites you most about where CTE can go? And or like, what do you hope defines the next era of CTE?
Here's my takeaway from writing this book. The great thing about it, I spoke to 40 people all across the nation. This wasn't a state of Iowa book. It wasn't a Midwest book. It wasn't a book just in a region. We had individuals from all across the nation, so many states, I'd have to count them, like 30 states, I think. We all had the same idea, the same vision of like, we need to take this to a different level. We need to shake things up. We need to disrupt. We need to reimagine how things are done. So it was great to know that it isn't just an Iowa thing or an Illinois thing or an Ohio, Wisconsin thing. It's a regional, it's a national thing. People are all on the same page that sit in these seats knowing that things need to be done differently. And that's what really excited me as we wrote this book, and just getting confirmation or affirmation that we're on the right path.
I think for the future of CTE, I think there will be leaders out there who have been waiting for something more than a program, more than a building, and they know it needs to be more. And they've been doing things, but they really want to dig in and do it holistically because they are truly passionate and care about their students, and they care about the future of their community. And I think those individuals are really going to take to heart and really dig in and do things that others aren't doing, and do them on a scale as far as really pushing out, thinking through all the students, like, what do all our programs do? How are we connecting? And how do we take CTE and this model of experiential learning and connected and partnerships and community, and how do we make sure that that starts to bleed into all of education, so that when students are learning, they are truly becoming tomorrow's leaders that are going to lead us in the direction that we need to go, and not just with money and with businesses and with jobs and careers, but with contributing back to our communities, with volunteering, with ensuring the next generation of education is transformative for our students. And I think those are going to be the leaders who then see people flock to their communities. The schools that are still stuck in ego, fear, and tradition will continue to see a decline because they're not digging into seeing the vision that we have to be more innovative. And there's a pathway out there and a system, multiple systems that we can connect into to actually make that happen.
If people don't know, like Alli and I and Kristy and Jeff, you got to get on some of these text runs that we all get in, because we always talk about this. And this is what I love that you have done. And Jeff, thank you for sharing in this CTE Reimagined book. What there are is there are 40 different ways and people who are doing it and connecting. I know on our follow-up podcast on the book that Alli and I are going to have, I'm going to be shooting off a lot of fireworks in there. But I wanted to leave everybody with this. Basically, this book, it's a challenge. It really is, and I really like it. And I've actually reduced my salt intake because it's pretty salty. No, all right, I'm just teasing there, Kristy. But I want to say, number one, what's next for you guys, and where can people find you and the book?
We're everywhere. This is coming out after Vision, so we will both be at Vision signing books, and I have a session there, but the Work-Based Learning Conference. So those are the two major conferences. I know I'll be out in Utah helping educators there, but otherwise you can find us on voleskyconsulting.com. Jeff is part of that group, but I know he's working on getting his own website as well. But really just, you can find us online. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, connect on LinkedIn. But we're always looking for ways to reinvigorate. And then we've got some fun stuff brewing with some schools and colleges that are really wanting to push this idea forward because they know if they don't, it's not going to be positive. Not because, anything that follows that you don't do the book. It's just, you have to do something different today. Like, you have to do something different. We know that things are not great. And we have some people who are like really eager to just change it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff, you retired, but you didn't.
It gives you more time to focus on trying to get this ship righted. And it also gives me the ability to say things that normally I probably wouldn't have said if I was gainfully employed by a district. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
We're trying to change that. That's what we're trying to change.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, I want to thank you both for being here with us. The book is CTE Reimagined, The Blueprint for Education's Future. There's some spicy, good stuff in here. Again, thank you for letting Alli and I write that forward. It's disruptive, and we highly recommend people to grab that book. I don't care if you're in CTE or not. Like, as an educator, everybody should read this, and parents, community members. It opens up some ideas. So thank you for being with us today. We want to thank our listeners. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, pass this one along. I know our next kind of recap of this one will happen next week. We're gonna salt it up a little bit, Alli. We're gonna be spicy too. So we'll catch you next week. Thank you guys for listening to the Disrupt Education podcast. See you later. Thanks for tuning into the Disrupt Education podcast. If this episode sparked an idea, pushed your thinking, or made you look at education a little bit differently, well, that's the point. We're here to elevate real stories, real people, and real change within our schools and communities. If you want more conversations like this, head over to disrupteducationpodcast.com. You'll find episodes, resources, and ways to connect with Alli and I. Hey, let's keep disrupting, because the future belongs to the learners who dare to do things differently. We'll catch you next time.